Station gang, and welcome back to Surrounded by Shortboxes with your boy Stu from Dr. Doom's fan club. This is a spotlight on my favorite back issues and why I love them so much. Today, we're talking about a plagiaristic historical curiosity in Fantastic Four number 91 from Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, in which Ben Grimm gets yoinked off Earth, sold like interstellar cattle, and forced to fight in a gladiator arena on a planet full of Skrulls who have, for reasons unknown, modeled their entire civilization after 1930s Earth gangsters. Yes, these shape-shifting alien warlords watched the Untouchables once and said,
It's me, Snakes. I got the stuff.
so let's get into this book's background and why I love this issue so much. By the time this issue dropped in the fall of 1969, Jack Kirby was nearing the end of his monumental run at Marvel. Though he's still producing some landmark issues with Stan Lee, tensions were mounting behind the scenes over creative credit, compensation, and Kirby was deeply dissatisfied with Marvel's editorial system, especially as Lee was often seen as the public face of their joint work together. All of this discontent would culminate in Kirby's eventual departure a year later when he leaves for DC Comics in 1970. 1969 also marks a huge cultural inflection point for America. The Vietnam War was starting to rage, civil rights battles were reshaping American life, Apollo 11 had just landed us on the moon, and science fiction was booming, particularly on television. So enter in Star Trek, which is big to our story here today, guys. Begins airing in 1966, and with it brings a mix of utopian ideals and anti-authoritarian critiques to mainstream television screens. Kirby was, of course, a voracious reader and thinker and keenly aware of all of these different ingredients being added into the pop culture jambalaya of America. So we open up our issue here mid-story arc. This would be the last multi-issue FF storyline Kirby does work on. Ben Grimm, aka The Thing, is stranded on the alien world of Crawl 4, a planet populated by humanoid Skrull gangsters whose society mirrors 1930s organized crime. This isn't a war-torn battle world or a galactic empire. It's a seedy, mob-ruled underworld obsessed with noir-era gangsters and violence as spectacle. We got here after a gangster named Machine Gun Martin broke out of prison and ended up finding a Skrull slavers recon ship during his escape. The Skrulls soon take to Martin and the gangster culture he comes from, and the rest is history, kind of. It's so damn bizarre to me that they do this at all, though, being that the Skrulls are known to be a ferociously proud race of alien beings and among the most powerful in the cosmos. But hey.
Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in.
Ben has been kidnapped and sold into slavery as a prize fighter for an intergalactic fight promoter named Boss Barker. The Skrulls here are caricatures of Earth mobsters, right? Fedoras, pinstripes, Tommy guns, you name it. They got the whole nine. Matter of fact, the slave keeper himself here looks a lot like actor Edward Robinson, who was famous for his gangster roles during Hollywood's golden age.
Well, listen, soldier. Thousands of guys got guns, but there's only one Johnny Rocco.
To me, they serve as a primo example of Kirby's visual flair for both the absurd and the allegorical. This Fight Club economy thrives on blood sport, and Ben is in the meat grinder. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Reed, Sue, and Johnny are working feverishly to locate Ben. Their subplot is light, but it also grounds us in the team dynamic and reinforces the fact that the FF just isn't whole without Ben. They need their boy back. Highlight for me also is the punk kids who harass Ben and the other Skrull slaves when they arrive on this planet, Crawl 4, and they throw in bricks at them. I love Lee's dialogue here as they do so. They, harassing these slaves. They couldn't punch their way out of a Saturnian fog field. As readers, we're invited not to root for Ben's physical triumphs here, but really for his ethical defiance. Despite his bizarre appearance and circumstances, I've always adored Ben Grimm's everyman persona and the love that Lee and Kirby handled this character with. This issue ends on a tense note as Ben finds himself with a new cellmate and a soon-to-be his deadliest opponent yet in Torgo. I love Torgo's design. It's Kirby all the way, and it's a great page to end it with. All right, let's talk about Star Trek and its profound influence here. On January 12th, 1968, Star Trek airs an episode entitled A Piece of the Action on NBC. In it, the USS Enterprise comes upon a planet whose alien culture is a dead ringer for Chicago in the 1920s. And this is due to the inhabitants having very much taken to a book entitled Chicago Mobs of the 20s, which was a volume of fiction which had been left there on the planet 100 years earlier by another Federation starship. So in the time since then, the book has transformed into a cultural holy Bible of sorts. And obviously the parallels between that and our Star Trek episode and here in this issue are plain to see with the inhabitants of the Skrull planet Krall, who've imprisoned Ben Grimm and built their culture around Machine Gun Martin and 1930s gangsterism. But hold on, folks. The artistic, quote unquote, inspiration, we'll call it, doesn't stop there for the King and Star Trek. A week before A Piece of the Action airs, Star Trek airs the episode The Gamesters of Triskelion. Now, it's easy enough to write off the theme in this episode, which is reluctant gladiators forced to fight, because it's a trope which I guess is vague enough to not be too direct of a hint, but all that goes out the window when the King really tips his hand when we see the design of these Skrulls' nerve collars, which are used by the green shapeshifters to control Ben and the other reluctant slave gladiators. These nerve collars are dead ringers for the collars of obedience in this Star Trek episode used by the Gamesters to control Kirk, Chekhov, and the others. So that's back-to-back Star Trek episodes that Kirby was able to homage, we'll call it, in this issue of Fantastic Four. I love FF91 because it is a bittersweet book in that it always reminds me of Jack Kirby and his discontentment and frustrations at the end of his time at Marvel. And that hurts my heart to think about what he went through regarding the company and all these characters that he had so lovingly created and built with his own two hands. Despite blatantly biting from a pair of Star Trek episodes here, the King still crafts a story that's socially conscious, visually kinetic, and it's also an intriguing look at one of the most formative moments in American culture in the year that was 1969. So despite the laughable level of ripoff that's going down here, it's important to remember why it happened in the first place. Not only that, but for the tongue-in-cheek historical footnote that it most certainly is, this story is also quietly foreshadowing Kirby's post-Marvel ambitions to tell cosmic scale stories with human rights at their core, which we would soon do with the New Gods over at DC. So that's it for me this time, gang. I hope you enjoyed. Comment below. Sound off for me about one of your favorite Jack Kirby comics. As always, please make sure you're subscribed to Dr. Doom's fan club with those notifications on so you don't miss any new great, fantastic comic book content. Until next time, thanks for watching.
Finish it! I'm going.
1, 2, 10. Keep the change, you filthy animal.